From the city of broad shoulders, this is Chicago Unscripted. Here's your host, Joe Donlon, who's sitting in my old chair these days at CBS News Chicago. Good Lord, I hope they cleaned that seat.
I got a text from Bob Costas the other day about his appearance on the first episode of Chicago Unscripted. First thing he said was, "Wow, you got Bill Kurtis to do the intro. How cool is that?" There is the voice of God, and then there's Bill Kurtis. One of my co-anchors used to say she'd listen to Bill read the phone book. I met him in 2017. I was working in Portland, Oregon, and Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me was taping at the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall in town. If you haven't listened, Wait, Wait is the weekly NPR news quiz show taped before a live audience in Chicago. I'm a huge fan. So I put in a request to talk with Bill and the host, Peter Sagal. It was laugh out loud fun. In one of the games they play on the show, Bill reads 3 news-related limericks with a missing word the caller needs to finish. So I wrote a few limericks of my own that Sagal had to finish, and Bill played scorekeeper as he does on the show. It remains to this day one of my favorite interviews. When we wrapped up, Sagal had to go, but Bill stuck around, and we talked for almost an hour about life, the news business, his side projects. He didn't know who I was, but he could not have been more gracious. I had no idea at the time that just a few months later, I would get a call from WGN about their main anchor position, and I had just the right new friend to help guide me through what was ahead, Bill Kurtis. That started a friendship that remains to this day. Quick peek behind the curtain. After 5 episodes of Chicago Unscripted, the analytics are starting to roll in, and one of the things I'm happy to see is the reach. I knew locals were my primary target for this show, and sure enough, 40% of you are listening in Illinois, 10% in Oregon. I spent 20 years there, so I appreciate that. And then listeners clock in from 20 states, from coast to coast, New York to California, Florida to Washington, and several states in between, Texas, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Georgia, Colorado. Those are the expats I was hoping would find the show, and it means a lot to me to have you along for the ride here as I crawl my way into this very crowded world of podcasts. I'm having a blast with these conversations. If there's someone with a Chicago connection you want to hear from, reach out, let me know. I do have a lot of invites out, and I can tell you I look forward to talking with the guests who have agreed to join me in the weeks ahead. In the meantime, if you like the content, do me a favor and hit subscribe and leave a review. It helps spread the word. Now back to the episode. Bill Kurtis is a legend. You might call him the OG Anchorman, a title solidified by his coverage of some of the biggest stories of the last several decades, with CBS Chicago as a network correspondent and network anchor, not to mention the hundreds of true crime documentaries he's hosted for A&E, and his work that lives on with his classic and forever quotable narration in the movie Anchorman. We talk about all that. Plus the one word he wouldn't say in a voiceover, and I'll warn you that goes a bit off the rails. He shared his thoughts on media today and his longtime co-anchor, Walter Jacobson. Is it true they used to have martini dinners before the late news? His wife has her own connection to Chicago history. We cover that. Their sprawling English manor serving now as a living conservation project in the suburbs, and the painful loss of his son. To quote Ron Burgundy, he's kind of a big deal. Here's Bill Kurtis. Let's start with Wait, Wait. You're known for introducing other people, but on Wait, Wait, you get to introduce yourself. What's your favorite line?
The favorite line is we were doing it out of Washington, and the line was, "Hi, I'm Bill Kurtis, and I'm the only bill that Washington can't veto." Or this last week, it doesn't translate very good to radio, but I'm putting both arms up, a la Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "All right, you Michiganders, get a gander of this." And, and the beauty, I don't write those, the writers, but everybody's waiting for them.
Yes, and that's why. Yeah, it's like the highlight, and it's how the show starts every week.
Yeah, that's my line, and from there on, it's downhill.
Well, I have a couple more that I found. I want to see if you can finish them. Hey, Kim Jong-un, why don't you try and launch me? I'm
Bill.
I'm a ballistic missile.
Oh, that is great.
All right, here's the last one.
Okay.
I'll take care of that odor. I'm your
Oh, I forget.
Bill Kurtis C. Flush.
Oh, the courtesy is
Did,
an
did
often
you
used
actually?
word.
You said that?
Oh, of course. I'll say anything.
You will. I was going to ask, is there a word you won't say?
It's kind of a classic answer now, but when Adam McKay, who directed Anchorman, took me to the restaurant there on Universal Studios, sort of as a favor, he said, well, is there anything, you won't say, any word you won't say? Well, at the time, I was a little naive, and it was 2004, and I still had images of being a journalist. And I said, well, maybe I won't say penis. So, so it's now written somewhere on the table, carved into it out there. Of course, now I would say penis many times.
Yeah. Well, you must have been on the air back in the Lorena Bobbitt days. That I remember having every night to say that she cut off her husband's penis. Don't you remember that?
I do. Oh, yes.
Good grief. What a story that was. She got in her car and drove off with it, Bill, and threw it out the window.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And
Can't remember that little detail.
Yeah. Well, what people also don't know is that it hit the windshield of the car behind her. And the guy inside with his buddy said, what kind of bug is that? And his friend says, I don't know, but it's got a huge dick.
Oh, Lorraine.
All right. Well, we'll leave the jokes to the wait writers. But this job for you has just been amazing. It's allowed you to sort of reinvent yourself, and you get to stay up on the news. You get to travel a little bit. How awesome has this Wait show been for you?
Well, it's been terrific. I've been doing it 12 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was filling in really for Carl Castle, and who had to leave. And Peter Sagal was a friend and said, well, maybe Bill will do it for once. Well, you give me one, and I was there forever, whether they like it or not.
Wow.
It's different. I'm trying to write a chapter now for my memoir about Wait, and it's very difficult because, it's not pure journalism. On the other hand, it's another sort of phase or chapter of journalism because more people will get their news that way, laughing about it, than they will watching Joe Donlon at 10 o'clock. So I don't try to argue that, hey, this is the future, this is the real journalism, where you get your news. Although today we have, the story where influencers accounted for something like 37% of the voters' information for this last election. Influencers on social media. I mean, we have gone crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I saw something the other day. I think it was on Colbert, so I don't know how true it is, but I think it was. He was talking about things that had actually been Googled on election day, and one of them was, is Joe Biden still running?
Oh, God, we'd be shocked. We're already shocked, but, to learn how many people don't know anything.
I read the other day, Bill, that Cold Case Files are back with new episodes. And I think I saw where you've done, is this right, like 500 of these?
It's pretty good. I think for Cold Case Files, probably 300. But I get into the 500 when we tally up all the productions from Kurtis Production. I hosted American Justice, Towers Productions, did that one. But Cold Case Files, the original was 137, and then the iterations, come back. And I think it's the longest running true crime series on A&E. In fact, it sort of started the whole true crime thing because back in the days when I was just beginning, to produce for A&E, it was about around 1990, 91. They wanted to get something on to get some ratings. And so we were down in Dallas, And my producer was working with the police and looking for the solution to. He said, "Well, we don't have a solution, but we have the guys working on it. They're in the back room. They're the short timers, and we give them a file, that had never been solved. So we call them the cold case unit." And suddenly, bingo! I believe we claim to have started the phrase "cold case."
Wow.
And the reason it's good for a television producer is that it's an endless, bottomless repository, so that you can go on and on and on with all the stories. And today it has its iterations, and A&E, they're following the live investigation, but
well, you were way ahead of the game in this. I mean, true crime is white hot these days between podcasts and all the online sleuths.
Yeah, probably 20 years was the beginning. We were there.
Well, let's talk about the beginning of your broadcast career, Bill, and that goes back to a story that some have probably heard, but for you, it was the big break. It was the tornado in Topeka, and what happened? The anchor called out sick, and you happened to be there, and you dropped a classic line that lives on today.
Yeah, I was had been doing a part-time to work my way through law school, and I was studying in a law review class. And I left about 5:30 to go out and fill in, for the news director who had been doing the 6 o'clock news. I stepped in front of the camera, and I could hear a two-way radio, that's how we communicated in those days, from our cameraman, who was out of the southwest edge of the city. And he said, "Tornado on the ground. I see it. It's white, it's big, and it's headed for the city, the core, the capital, the university from whence I came to come to work, suburbs and shopping malls and hospitals and all that." So with each of those realizations, why, the pressure builds. Now, and you would appreciate this, you're an anchorman, you're live, looking right into the camera so you can't get away. But you have to utter the most important words of your life, because they will mean life and death. And so nothing was written out. And I said, "For God's sake, take cover," in a rather dramatic fashion, I presume. Well, it got through. And it was, at the time, the worst tornado, most damaging, in the country. And, but we only had, I think about 17 dead. Now that sounds like a lot.
Right.
Could have been 100 and more.
Did you ever hear from anyone who said they heard you say that and it saved their life?
Everybody.
Wow.
For the rest of my life. I could get a call today. On Wait, Peter usually comes out to the front of the stage and takes questions. Very first question was, "Well, Bill Kurtis, you saved my life."
Wow.
And I want to thank you.
What does that mean to you, Bill?
Oh, I tear up every time I hear that.
I got the
because
chills.
you could have nothing that is more important than that. That's what we do. We communicate information to people who can do something about it. But in this case, it was life and death. And what they had to do was get in the basement.
So that got you to Chicago, right? I mean, that clip, that tape sort of got you here. How old were you when you came to Chicago? You came as a reporter to BBM, right?
26. Now, I had been wrestling with the decision on whether or not to practice law. You go to law school for 3 years, don't want to throw that away, or stay in journalism. Now, I had about 10 years experience when I graduated from law school, because I started at 16 at a little town, Independence, Kansas, 10,000, down on the southeast corner of the state, and which was probably the greatest experience that I had had. Had a wonderful mentor. You learn on the job, and then you work your way up with part-time jobs through school. I had actually decided to practice law.
Oh.
And because broadcasting came so easy, and at the time, the CBS News, the great networks, there were only three, but they had not grown to where they are today. Murrow had just come back from World War II, so he was still ruling over, broadcast news. And so by 1966, it was the civil rights movement that we got into, covering the war, Vietnam War, and riots and cities burning would come. So it was really our baptism of fire, we being in the television news business. And we were writing the history as we were out there standing on the street. So I'm thinking. I had accepted a job with a trial firm in Wichita. And when the tornado came through, I said, "Are you crazy? You've got talent. You've got now an education." I had wanted to kind of be a Supreme Court reporter, but they only had three legal reporters at the time covering the Supreme Court. So, you may never do that, but, stay in broadcasting. And sure enough, BBM here in Chicago saw me, John Madigan, and offered me a job. Well, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
Kid from Topeka, yeah. So I put my family, wife and 6-month-old who had gone through the tornado in a Nash Rambler, carrying a U-Haul trailer and back, and headed just like Dorothy, on the yellow brick road out of Kansas for who knows what, the Emerald City. And we hit Chicago, didn't know anything, never been to Chicago, passed through there once in the train, and knew where Northwestern was. It's in Evanston. Oh, okay, we'll try to get there. Right. And when I reached Sheridan Road, and Dewey, it was at night, and couldn't go any further, of course, because of the lake. I didn't know it was a lake at the time, and it was just this giant black abyss
that you almost drove into.
Almost. I mean, I didn't know any more than that. So we got a hotel room, and in the morning woke up. Imagine my surprise when it's an inland sea that I across. And from then on, it was 60 years. Wow. 60 years from that time. Now, I had the law degree, and I wanted to get into, the specialty of legal stories. And I think within a day or so, I walked into the newsroom, and they had just caught Richard Speck. Well, it was a year before the trial started, but of course, hey, we have a lawyer, on staff. So I covered Richard Speck. Then we had the King assassination, right, and the riots in the streets. I was on Madison and followed the burners with the torches who were going building to building in the old row houses with the crew following along. So check that off. And then we had the conspiracy trial in 1969, and I was at Balboa, Michigan, which was ground zero for the Democratic National Convention, protesters in the street and the cops, in their line, and I followed the whole thing. But anyway.
Well, is there another story to you that stands out, Bill? I mean, there were so many big trials that you mentioned, the 68 convention, your coverage of the Iran hostage crisis. What's the one thing that you will always remember?
Well, I've written up 4 trials of the century. You got Speck. You have the conspiracy trial. I went short and I covered Charles Manson for 10 months, sitting in the courtroom, and then Angela Davis. That happens to be the bloodiest of them all. And then came back and started in a 9-year period at local television, WBBM, with the mission, we had wonderful management, a mission to get the ratings up. Well, I had this idea that if I could continue I had worked for 3 years as a correspondent
Right.
out on the coast. If I could combine my love for travel, especially overseas, with a local peg, then we could bring something new back to the mix of regular news and attract an audience. Well, it worked, and they bought it. And so I went to Northern Ireland, and I was 2 weeks before Saigon fell in Vietnam. And yes, the hostage crisis in Iran.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, I was there. And we discovered that they used their drugs in a particular part of town by the bazaar. And when we were down there hungry for news, I guess selfish to just get as close as we could, they started chasing us.
Huh.
And I had my first sort of epiphany about Islam. And we ran to a corner drugstore. And it was very near, but the mob was right behind us, and they came to the windows, and they were demanding that the merchant, send us out. He very coolly walked out, and he said, "You are Americans. We do not like Americans right now, but according to my religion, you have come into my establishment as guests.
Wow.
And I will lead you without injury to a cab and make sure that you leave safely." Wow. And he did.
What
and
a story.
To this day, I'm looking for a way to repay that. But anyway, so all those little adventures, kind of add up. And I think we can claim we crafted a new new mission for local television news.
Yeah. You said you are writing your memoir. What made you decide to do that now, and how hard was it? Have you been keeping a diary all these years, or did you just sit down and start thinking about stories you wanted to talk about?
It's all in my head, and it never leaves. It was a pandemic, so you have plenty of time. Sitting right here where I'm doing the Zoom with the guy looking over my shoulder, the Anchorman. And so I had plenty of time, which is a big deal. And realized that, we forget about so many things, but when you start to focus, I could see it again.
Yeah, more and more things start coming to you.
See them again. I could smell the streets and listen to the crowd yell, and I could relive it. So it wasn't hard once I got into the flow. It was remarkable. It's like sitting down and entering another world, but it's the world inside your head. And it's all accurate, very accurate.
Do you talk about your time at the network? You got the call to do the morning show with Diane Sawyer. What was your experience like at the network?
Well, Diane and I hit it off great. And she was really on a meteoric rise and would jump into 60 Minutes. And I would then co-anchor looking for, the right woman to pair up, with, let's say, every woman in television would come through town.
Sure.
Maria Shriver came in, and it was her first time on TV. And I said, "Well, has your mother told you anything?" She said, "Yes, she told me, just don't embarrass us." Well, she didn't, but everybody else did. It's a place filled with, the one good thing about it was we were introducing satellite coverage, not to the extent it is today. You can go live to the middle of the front lines in Ukraine and get a report. But we were reaching out with the satellite. And that was good because we were plowing new ground. What was not so satisfying was that it's filled with politics. You suddenly are doing one of 2 or 3 jobs at the top of your profession, the job that everybody wants.
Well, was there a lot of infighting within the network, Bill, or did you feel like there were people gunning for your job all the time?
Well, I did. It was not. It took me about 3 years, to kind of settle down and be accepted as one of the old timers. But there was a lot of competition, and you have to expect that, of course.
Right.
But you better not make too many mistakes.
You gave an address at KU earlier this year. This was an article I just found, Bill, that you talked about the difference between fact and opinion and in news. And people tell me all the time they long for the days of Walter Cronkite. And I'm thinking, listen, I'm in the trenches today, and Walter Cronkite would have covered these stories the same way we are. I mean, he was your mentor. I know you were close with him, worked with him. How would Walter Cronkite have covered, say, the Access Hollywood tape?
Well, let me, he would have gotten on, but he would have excised out, the pussy word. But let me tell you about Walter. He was an old, experienced Dutchman, tough. He had flown in the bombers in World War II. He had worked for UPI. He was not a Murrow boy, although Murrow tried to hire him. For some reason, he did not. And when he came back, he became a broadcaster. He did the morning news, actually, at WTOP in Washington, and gradually got into CBS, and had the real stentorian voice until 1963, just a couple months before Kennedy was killed. Why he was on a broadcast that was expanded to 1/2 hour. Now, that half hour of the CBS Evening News has never changed, has never broadened. Of course, you create a 60 minutes, and so they can spend more time. But he believed that you have to, that more people are watching CBS News than read the New York Times. And the New York Times does not reach to Kansas City, out into the rural areas across the country. And he had a responsibility to cover those stories too.
The difference between then and now, and I think about Cronkite's classic line, which is, and that's the way it is. And today, that's not the way it is for a lot of people, maybe even half your audience. I mean, we can't even agree on what a fact is, Bill. I mean, Trump continues to insist the 2020 election was stolen when he lost fair and square, just like he won fair and square in 16 and 24. I mean, you can't call January 6th an insurrection because a lot of people think it was a typical tour or a picnic. And suddenly you say that and you're an enemy of the people.
Yeah. It is an unusual problem for a journalist because you can give a factual report according to what you saw, and the big guys come along and say, well, that's not right because what you were seeing is not right. Take the January 6th, for example. Yes, you have spears going through the window of the Capitol building, but were they protesters wanting to get in, according to the police, tourists, perhaps?
Right.
Or was it an insurrection trying to overturn the government of the United States? So you add the politics. Now, to me, that's not that hard. You had 5 policemen dead. You had 131 injured. So you're going up, and these are military guys, veterans, cops, who are the demonstrators. They ought to know better. And there should have been a line where they said, whoa, this is getting too serious, let's back off. But they didn't. Now, is the reason they didn't adrenaline, or because they were doing the bidding of the prime guy who said, you got to fight.
Going back to your days on the desk, Bill, Walter Jacobson would give his editorial. I mean, that's opinion. What's the difference?
It was opinion, but we labeled it as such. We called it perspective. And everybody knew, he had 90 seconds. Within that time, it was very often explosive in terms of power. It spoke directly to the black community. And he was a god because he was giving them a voice. The politicians, the old joke was, what's the worst news you could have today? Well, it's what my secretary says. You got a call from Walter Jacobson.
Yeah.
He got him 20 Emmys straight. And he wanted nothing more than to do that 90 seconds.
But you couldn't do that today, Bill. That's my point. I don't think anyway. At least if you touched anything political, you risk alienating half your audience.
Yes, you're right. Exactly right. And your management.
Yeah.
Very tight, very restrictive, and kind of limited to, okay, let's just, you want me first? Yeah. But let's get it on. And incidentally, I like a lot of what Local is doing. Their investigative pieces, they are really good. They're spending more time on some of these stories, but every night, the first 10 minutes is the latest killing, shooting, police gathered at the scene. So there's a sameness to it, and I wish the police department, in addition to the reporters, would take another step. That when the cops have gone and, you have a suspect, go to the mother, go to the house, go to the family, and find out, how
What
this happened. Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about, I guess, something that happened to you late in your career that you debated, and that was the role in Anchorman. How did that role come to be?
Adam McKay, the director, it was his first movie. He was going to Second City, and they were involved in a development of their impromptu comedy. So he had always admired, because it was Walter and I in our heyday, admired us as anchor people, not as the Will Ferrell Anchorman, but just the popularity and the power of that everybody seemed to love. So they wrote the script, he and Will, and sent it to me, and he said, I knew you weren't going to accept it, but I thought I would try it anyway. Well, I read it on the plane, and I was laughing at every line.
Yeah.
So when they had a little audition, and little did I know that at Universal in the sound studios, there was Adam listening, and Will, and Judd Apatow, and Jack Black, I think. I mean, they had them all there, the ensemble.
Sure.
And I would record I'd record a line and then laugh because they were genuinely funny. Well, they had written it, and you write a joke once and it's not funny anymore because you heard it. Well, it was a fresh voice, and they were so, I think, taken with it that they wrote the classic opening sequence that went a little like this. There was a time before cable, when only men read the news. In San Diego, that man was Ron Burgundy. He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr and wore suits better than Sinatra, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. You probably would have done that for free.
Yeah, for free.
But you probably get great residuals now, I'm sure, don't you?
No, I get 69 cents every time.
Every time it plays?
Yeah. They're businessmen. They would let them make the 20 million, for the rest of their lives.
They got you for a steal.
But, and they knew because, it's the first time, it's thrilled. He'd be thrilled to make a movie. Actually, that wasn't my case because I was afraid I had just shelved my career. Journalists
this is a career ender.
Yeah, ender. And I didn't want to end it, but I called a friend who was with him and say, hey, is this going to be a dud, or am I going to have to sell shoes afterwards? And he said, no, we can't always predict success or failure, but these are good people, and it's at least won't be that humiliating. Well, in fact, it turned out to be the classic, as you know.
Yeah.
And has been still.
Yeah.
That was
One of my
2004.
Yeah.
So when we had a premiere at the Broadcast Museum in New York, suddenly Adam comes on and he said, here, I want you to interview Will Ferrell as the big guy, on stage. And for 200 of the comedy folks in New York, because they all wanted to see, the latest foray into the comedy world by two people they like. So we came in, and Will was dressed in Ron Burgundy's suit, maroon. I sat next to him in a Walter Cronkite suit, and said, Ron, tell me about the women in your life. How many women have you had? He said, I've had 11. Now, it's very interesting about comedy. 11 is not 12, not 10.
Right.
Why 11? Because it's funny.
Yeah.
And so I said, oh, really? And then he said, well, go ahead, ask me another, you son of a bitch. and suddenly we were off and running. So I come back with, did you have any men in your life? And he thought for a minute. He said, well, no, but unless you count the summer when Warner Wolf and I ran naked in the woods and then came back to the cabin to build model ships.
Yes.
Now put all those things together, and you have authentic humor.
Ron Burgundy. What a career twist for you. That's just fantastic. So let's talk about your personal life quickly here, Bill. A couple things. When you and I were at lunch recently, you took 2 calls. One was from your daughter and one was from your wife, Donna. And it sort of gave me a glimpse into just how important both of them are in your life.
Well, Donna is, the star with not only with our family, but among women leaders. She's chairman of the Millennium Park Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, she was among the 3 original founders. It was John Bryan and Mayor Daley and Donna. And for a while, people say, well, geez, how did this young woman get in there? Well, because she was smart, admired, intelligent, and she was female. So they had her really at their elbow every step of the way. And Mayor Daley also had her with the landscape committee and things like that. And she is still chairman after 20 years of the fan. It is such an advantage to have the person who knows the dreams and what it took to build it in the first place, to link and the continuity extending all the way down. And then my daughter moved from San Francisco, where she went after Boston University, where she spent 15 years, and said, I'd like to go to the ranch. I have a ranch in Kansas. And, a couple of weeks and, a little vacation. So she goes and never leaves.
She's running the ranch now, right?
Well, it's hers.
Yeah. Okay.
So I finally gave it to her. And yes, she's, again, in her own right, a female boss, raising bison and, having to make decisions with the cowboys out there who want to put their cattle on our grass. We sold a big chunk of it to the Delaware Indian Nation, who wants to, I guess, kind of put their reservation back together.
Huh.
which is an interesting demographic to have come into the tough old conservative cowboys. So anyway, she's doing well. Both of them are doing well.
Something you haven't talked a lot about, Bill, although I did read an article in Chicago Magazine where you did, and I think you're getting more comfortable talking about that now, is the death of your son, Scott. And I do think it's important because so many families today are dealing with mental health issues. I have relatives who have dealt with it, whether it's anxiety or depression. It's so common today compared to when you were going through it with Scott. He died, I think, in 2009. So I'm wondering what your advice would be to people who are trying to navigate this today, considering what you went through.
It's very, very, very difficult. He was hardcore schizophrenic. We went to the best mental facility, in the country, Menninger's. They're in Topeka. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I tried to create an independent locus with his own house in the little town of Sedan, with two, quote, guardians to administer the drugs and the medications from Lilly and Pfizer and, the people with the psychotic drugs. My advice, watch it, because those all cause weight gain. He went from Menninger's, which was a sweet, curly-head kid, to 300 pounds.
As a result of the drugs?
Yep. At the time he died, as a result of the drugs. And, there's no drug that can cure the mental illness of schizophrenia, bipolar, what have you. It can help by, lessen the illusions, the hallucinations you have, and the hearing of the voices, so that you can maintain some kind of stability, so that you can operate in a normal world. But there's no cure. They have not found the cure.
Do you think things have improved since Scott's death with the medications?
So. I hope so. I've been out of it for 10 years or so, having to look at them. But they keep coming out with some. If I went, I don't want to make a statement because I could be wrong. Anyway, the family has to get involved, and that's important. It's important to keep them as part of the family. It's very, very difficult because these people, are different. They become different people that you don't know.
Yeah.
And but if you invite them to Christmas and make them feel part of the family and protected, supportive, that's all you can do, really.
Well, the last chapter in your life's been a great one, Bill. You and Donna bought the what do you call it? The English Manor? What do you call it?
We call it Matawa Manor, which is after the little village where we live. There are only 500 people here. Our interest is conservation, so we have put into conservation easement 65 acres around us, and have eliminated the invasive species called buckthorn that invades everybody and takes away the space and the sunlight. And we now allow the Botanic Garden and Northwestern students to come in and use plots of land experimentally to try and measure the amount of carbon that the long-rooted native plants store 14 feet down. Because if we can establish that and create native pastures, then that can be as big a repository of carbon as the ocean, because we have an awful lot of prairie out there. We are the prairie state. So far, we're doing the best we can. It's difficult because to measure 14 feet down, you have to dig it up. Well, you don't want to dig it up, but it's worthy of doing it.
You host a lot of tours there as well, right, to the public? And I saw where Robert Redford came out. Is that right?
Well, once a year we have an open house. Bob came for his own charity, which is the Way of the Rain, and he and his wife put on essentially a quasi Broadway show, and he will come in and speak, and then they'll have Indian dances and a variety of attractions. They've been here 2 or 3 times in the Chicago area. And so
when they do, they
back.
stop by, huh? Bob?
They stop by. Hello.
Bob. What's ahead for you, Bill? How much longer will you do Wait, Wait? What do you think?
Well, I'm 84, and they're looking at me and saying, hey, you're 84. I'm a pretty good 84.
You are.
I haven't smoked or had drink. I haven't drunk to excess. But still a little bit. I don't know, I'll go as long as I can walk and have a voice.
Is it true you and Walter used to go out for a couple martinis in between shows and come back? Like I heard Walter used to just run his car up on the curb and turn the flashers on and come in at 9:50 for the 10 o'clock show.
Well, he got caught a couple times. So I think that put a stop to it. Again, here's something of great interest to you, being an anchorman. We started off 2 separate guys, but anchoring, whether it's a man, woman, or 2 men, is like an arranged marriage.
Yep.
You 2 are married, and you better get used to it. Well, over the years, we realized that we were stronger together than apart. He would do the inside, I was the outside guy, so we weren't competitive head to head, but when we did come in and do the news, we had stuff to talk about. And we actually came to admire one another like brothers.
Yeah.
And that we have a deep feeling for each other. Which
That's
is
great.
Wonderful, wonderful.
That really is.
That's called charisma.
Yeah. Your voice has taken you to so many places. What a run, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
Nice to chat with you, Bill. Thanks.
Bye-bye, Joe.
My thanks to Bill for the conversation, the candor, the advice, the support, and the friendship. I also want to thank the management at CBS News and CBS News Chicago for their support of this project. The original soundtrack is provided by my friend, Chicago vibraphonist Thaddeus Tukes. And I couldn't do this without the production support from Brian Griggs Productions. Brian does all the editing and post-production work. And Ellie Coder, who provides the editing and production for social media. As always, I thank you for listening to Chicago Unscripted.